Welcome to Northwest Profiles, a look at people, places, and events of interest in the inland Northwest.
These days, it seems that regardless of where you go or which way you turn, you're constantly bombarded with information, and more information. This info explosion is the byproduct of communications technology, a technology that over the last 3 decades has given us instant access to a variety of communication options. However, while we enjoy and take advantage of all this info technology, it serves us well to remember a time not so long ago when our communication options were limited to merely a pen and a piece of paper. At the turn of the century, one of the more popular ways of communicating with one another was by postcard.
Vintage postcards started as government postal cards, and they started in Austria in 1869. And then in 1873, the United States came out with their first government postal. But they still didn't mail them back and forth. In other words, it wasn't something I could mail to my cousin in Germany. And then in July 1st, 1875, there was an international postal treaty where then it was possible to start mailing government postals. In 1898, the first private mailing card came out. So really in 1898 was the beginning of the postcard era. And that kind of paved the way for private printers to start printing postcards. But they were largely kind of undivided backs. Sometimes they allowed for a border to write a message on the front because it was legal to write nothing but the address on the back. And then in 1907, then they introduced divided backs where you could write the message on one side and the address on the other. Most postcards were all printed in Germany because they had the superior dyes and inks. And after the war, the reason the postcard era died out is because of all the superior dyes and colors died out with the war. We no longer shipped our printing over to Germany.
During what is referred to as the golden era of postcards between 1898 and the end of World War I in 1918, there were millions of postcards published, printed, sold, and mailed around the world. And while it's true they may have been a dime a dozen back then, these same old postcards today have become highly collectible. Why? Well, for various reasons, but for Spokane's Kathy McLean, a prominent postcard collector and dealer, it was the beautiful lithography that first caught her eye.
Lithography was a type of printing that if there were 17 colors, it was a 17-stone printing. So every time they did a 17-stone printing, they did 17 printings. The kind of printing they do now is real uniform. If you looked at it under a microscope, it'd be very flat, very square, very uniform. And chromolithograph, you got a greater depth of color and a beauty of color because they were random dots in different sizes and prettier colors. I mean, the first postcard I ever bought was $8, and it was a little girl looking at her sailor father. And I was first struck by the vibrancy of the color, the fire in the eyes, and it was just a beautiful child and father image. And that started it. It was all over.
Most of the vintage postcards that are considered collectible fall into one of two major categories. They're either greeting postcards or real photo postcards. Then from there, they are divided into hundreds of subcategories, limited only by the imagination of the people who collect them.
It's real diverse. Most people collect topically, and that could be by a particular signed artist. It could be by a particular printing company like Tux, PFB. It could be for history reasons. We have a lot of people who collect for genealogy. We have some people that collect postal history, and they collect territorial or discontinued post offices. And that just means they collect postmarks from post offices that weren't in operation very long. And the less time they were in operation, the more rare they are. So that branches off into an entirely different collecting aspect of postcards. I have people that collect the unusual, like a really nice hold-a-light Santa, the mechanicals with moving parts, or maybe a wheel that spins. It has almost a kaleidoscope effect. But most 95% of people who come in here just love the aesthetic appeal. They're attractive. They collect really nice greeting cards, lovely ladies, Santas, street scenes of what Spokane looked like in 1908 in the surrounding local area. sports figures, the old baseball guys, and that kind of thing.
Because postcard collecting is a relatively new hobby, most people who discover them after cleaning out their attic aren't sure of what they have. Unfortunately, this lack of awareness, much to the chagrin of avid collectors, has led to the destruction and disposal of many valuable postcards. Obviously, the better option for those who find some old postcards is to do what a lot of people are now beginning to do, and that's call a postcard dealer like Kathy for some sound advice.
The most common question is, what is this worth? And it's kind of hard to tell over the phone what it's worth. Generally, with a greeting card, if it's in better shape without any creases and no corner wear, it's going to command a little bit more of a higher price. With real photo, if the image is intact on front, they're less particular because some of them are so rare. Photographers used to travel around the countryside and take pictures and sell them, and maybe there's 200, but nobody really knows. But it's frustrating for people because they want to know an absolute and there aren't.
Another question Kathy answers on a regular basis involves something commonly found on most vintage postcards, and that, of course, is the written word. The question is, does this devalue the postcard?
The only time that makes a difference, if it's a greeting card. Generally, when people collect greeting cards, they don't like to have a cancel in the face or any writing on the front. There's an example, though, when it is a plus, and that's an old real photo street scene. The guys almost like it to be canceled because it legitimizes the age that it is, and sometimes people just collect the messages because they're fun. One of the most unusual, and this is a little macabre, but the front of the postcard showed this man on a roan-nosed horse, and the back of the postcard it said, "Hi, Mary Jane, see you at the barn dance Saturday. You put up the strawberries, blah, 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 blah." And the kids have had the measles and all that kind of stuff. I mean, real typical of the era. And at the very end it said, "P.S. By the way, Granddad died in the tub last night." I mean, it was really unusual stuff. So you just never know.
One thing we do know is that with the help of her husband Mike, Kathy McLean to date has collected over 80,000 postcards with an appetite for even more. And why not? Considering the supply of these enduring paper links to our past appears unlimited, at least for the moment.
It's a hobby that's still kind of in its infancy because it's an unknown commodity yet. There's lots of treasures in lots of Grandpa's attics, and we don't know how many survive fires or floods, but if it goes in the ways of other hobbies, people begin to write books and have lists, and it begins to be more of a known commodity. I don't know that'll ever really be possible with postcards because they're so diverse, and I think that's probably one of the most fun things about postcards is you've never seen it all. It's diverse and it's fascinating, and the more you collect, the more you collect.
If you have a topic for Northwest Profiles, send it to KSPS TV, 3911 South Regal, Spokane, Washington, 99223. Northwest Profiles is a presentation of KSPS Public Television.